Hey everybody, it is Rita and Scott. We're here with the Cosmic Dialog again that we have not rehearsed. And today we're going to talk about when we found certain ways to open portals and how we did it, what happened, and what we found that was available to everyone. So, Rita, why don't you get started?
Okay. So back towards the end of 2020, because the world was under so much oppression and dark elements were revealing themselves so blatantly, at least to us, it was obvious. And we were watching so many people go along with that dark, evil, constricting, oppressive agenda. We started looking for, as there always is in nature, a counterbalance to that, a place out of the oppression. And I had already had experience with that because the place where I live has that oppressive feeling. And there was, I'd already been through not being able to do anything successfully because of this heavy oppressiveness that was just weighing everybody down, not just me, but everybody around me. And so I started looking for the portal beyond it or through it. So we just really started to have faith that the portal towards light and goodness and creativity and full, abundant realization of being human and one of God's children, that was available too. And we didn't have to be oppressed by the predatory forces at work. So when you really started to feel the possibility of that, what was the first thing you noticed?
Well, I noticed you'd mentioned this a little earlier, and I felt this as a progression in the control systems of like people then starting to wearing sunglasses or glasses or eye coverings for in fear that an airborne particle would create sickness or dis-ease in them, and how that was the next step of like covering our eyes. And that was just, and that's what got me thinking. If our eyes had to be covered again and our ears covered, we have certain gateways that we can use already. So it took a little experimenting and it took a lot of faith. But the ideas of looking into our own eyes, looking into other people's eyes, using the eye as a symbol, as a portal, as something to focus on, as just as we hold a galaxy in our eyes. I mean, and so we have neglected for so long that we have a blueprint on our body already. And ever since we've been born, we've had a blueprint to crossing through a portal into those unknown spaces. And so by focusing even inward on even the image of our own eyes. And of course, Rita, your soul circles often mimic the same qualities of our eyes, the galaxies that are within our bodies already. And so one way that I started practicing was just with the mirror, by just gazing into my own eyes. And then allowing that to put me in some sort of a meditative space. A lot of people are so unwilling to look into their own eyes, look at their own faces. They don't necessarily like what they see, and judgment is there. And so I had to realize that how genius it was for us to have judgment put into us so much that we couldn't look into our own eyes. To actually peel all that judgment away, to actually just sort of peer into that beyond our human, three-dimensional societal control system selves. So that was when I first started experimenting. And then I really didn't have to use that mirror any longer. But I would just actually kind of like have the mirror in my mind, use my mind and my internal compass as that mirror. And then I saw images of my eye in three-dimensional, the iris three-dimensional flipping over itself and me crossing through. And that was how I started opening portals, traveling distances, receiving even more information, seeing higher dimensional beings, angels, spirits, you know, light beings of higher purpose rather than evil, and also calling upon them. To me, I think this is a realm where you could actually call upon whatever deities or spirits you want, but by finding those beings of light and higher purposes, to me, it didn't feel like power, but it felt like strength and faith. So there was no like gathering of power. It was like a strength and faith because I was able to reach these guides, angels, God, and feel that love. It was almost as if it was like the darkness couldn't exist, so like it was like a shield that held it back, held it at bay. That's what I started to sense and how I did it. How about you?
Well, that is so perfect. Yeah, that's a perfect place to start. And maybe that's what I was doing with drawing all the soul circles. I was looking into many eyes, and um, and I had been looking at my own eyes, but not consciously, well, in a way, to see what was there, to see what kind of universe existed there. But, really wanting to get an iridology picture of my own eye, but not willing to go do it during shutdowns because of not wanting to be around the people who weren't perfectly safe in their own self. And then also just trusting that it was at work, regardless if I was seeing this way towards my eyes or seeing through them. So around that time, I started to feel, which the eyes would be a perfect place to start with this, started to feel the electric circuitry of my spirit and how it could possibly be coding my entire physical body, and what was available to my physical self via my spirit self, and noticing the false beliefs that are just put upon us as we grow up in this world, and then consciously rejecting that. And that opens up, each time I do that, it opens up a space for, okay, if that's not true, what is true? What can this electrical circuitry of who I am accomplish? Or what kind of abilities are available if I just turn that on? And so I started to just be conscious of my spirit self, or visualizing it as a circuitry, and then everything else started to have this circuitry. So I was seeing these, it's almost like a crystalline form that is alive and moving, but I started to also see the physical, recognizable to this world at the same time. And so I could interact with objects and things in the world differently than I had been before. I could essentially communicate with things. What are you here for? And what can I do to enhance that? And what can you do to enhance what I'm here for? So that has been just amazingly energy loaded, and took me out of that. That was a portal in itself. It took me out of that oppression to a whole universe of possibilities that was being suppressed and just erased, attempted to be erased. But I had no connection to the possibility that it could be erased.
It was amazing when sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, I was just saying, I just lived in that portal realm rather than the oppression realm.
Right. It was amazing how I really started to realize that every part of my body was a technology, that it was also a spiritual technology. So we have these rationalizations of like parts of our anatomy, neurons and the rods and cones in your eyes. And so when I started like really sort of focusing on just those aspects, and I think that we are taught in like anatomy that here's what we discovered in there. Now they're like flat. We have rods and cones, and they help us just to detect lightness and darkness and color, and that's all they tell us in our learning. But when I began to like think of these little small portions like neurons, electrons, rods, cones, particles in our iris is all just parts, like you said, circuitry of technology. And it also reminds me of like the whole concept of the movie and the series of Stargate, how like the gate would swirl and certain little chevrons would activate and click. That I believe was a signal to us about our eyes and our innate technology to actually just activate certain portions of our to be conscious of that as we started swirling through these open stargates that we could visit. But that technology totally exists, and we actually, through faith and through just practice and getting it into our mind and our body and our even just wiping away the old belief systems that we've been programmed with and creating new programming sets of languages to communicate to these portions of our bodies. That was when amazing miracles started to happen. When I actually believed in the harnessment of this natural God-given technology, and throughout all of the control mechanisms that said, no, you're a flat molecular system. Now I threw that programming away and dug deeper. So, and then I noticed parallels in, how we can pick up light, how our eyes will shrink and expand according to the light that comes in. And then you realize there are some people who get into meditative trances that actually their eyes won't, they're able to keep their irises open with light. And they have no visual damage in sight and whatever. And then even walking in the earth around the world, in the 3D world, harnessing and just realizing you have this technology that you are playing with and seeing the results. You begin to almost hear a visual sensation. You almost see an auditory sensation. Things begin to integrate within those senses. They aren't fragmented. Oh, this was a scent, smell. This was a visual. This was auditory. This was taste. This was mental imagery. They begin integrating to give you more information as a whole. But I'm still kind of going through that, but that's something I'm noticing now, is how once we believe that we are reprogramming and playing with the real program that we've been given, the real technology, then it's opening up portals doesn't seem so tricky after a while.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like these angels, light spirits, they've been waiting and waiting for us to just unlock portions, to even just sort of like for us to know that they're present. And then once we unlock that and we know that they're present, it's like there is a presence that is, we can't unknow it. So, but it takes a willingness just to actually like, you catch yourself, oh, I'm coming back into my body where I don't believe in the technology. Let's go back. Let's get back into our space where we actually see the console.
Yeah.
The console in front of us, and we can just walk in the world just seeing the console in front of us, believing in that truth rather than the flat truth that we've been subject to. That was a huge step.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then just taking that step and then deciding that maybe miraculous things can start happening. And then assisting those things to happen and not needing anyone to see it necessarily other than you and me. And if they do, to not step up and say, yeah, I did that, because we know it was the technology that we are that can make more and more things happen. So the exciting part was just seeing what else we could do. And to take it out of being self-serving to bigger things. Like the self-serving part, just that was a quick, yeah, that was just like a little moment to see what else we could do. And it still sounds crazy to most people because we aren't that far from when we first started that. And we've just been kind of in our own laboratories, so to speak. And we're just content with letting people discover it organically instead of putting out a video or something to say, look at what I did, look at what happened, and I witnessed it. We were just happy to be there as a conduit for something amazing to happen in the world.
And even if we did put out a video, it was almost as if it were hiding in plain sight. The people wouldn't see it. And there was like this natural progression of like maybe 2 years in the future. That was when that was being caught on by other folks. So, and to just interfere with that natural progression, even though we could just put it out and it could hide in plain sight, that was fine. I didn't mind that at all. But yeah, it's not something you force to try to teach someone else or to.
No.
But it is kind of a nice. Yeah, you have to know your place too. Yeah, we're neophytes. We're children programming, and the fact that we can actually contact other places and realms and beings and is incredible. But
yeah, the learning is just so
learning is vast.
Yeah, and fun. Who needs a master's degree when you can?
Oh my gosh! And who needs the validation to be able to tell someone to evaluate you?
Yeah.
That's the thing too.
Mm-hmm.
We realize that a degree from this external waking world holds no value in the 5D upper interdimensional technology world.
And then we started recognizing how we had been using our technology already before we really called it that. You with knowing things while you sleep, seeing and meeting people and learning things that you needed for when you were awake. That was your spirit at work using the technology available. And me drawing snapshots of people's soul and the colors and energies that exist in all of us. And so for whatever reason, you and I were able to tiptoe into it without exactly knowing what we were doing until the point where we decided to consciously undertake the I'm looking for an analogy or a metaphor, just consciously undertake the learning that is available from other realms. And
like
yeah,
You just
the,
decided to pick up the book. Pick up the book.
yeah.
You just decided that. Pick it up.
And then knowing how giant the book is and how many other books there are and how long it's going to take and what do we care? We have an infinity to go
Right.
through it all.
Right. Um, yeah, you have to just sort of take the step.
And have faith and not need anyone to agree with you that it's real.
Right. Right. And that in this new programming, reality is a multiple omniverse of possibilities. That's all it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Although we assume that reality is just this one flat, smashed down, flat plane that we're experiencing in real time, during the waking realm. But reality, all it is it's an omniverse of many points of possibility existing at the same time. That's reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So every moment is an experiment. And we just started, like, our eyes started getting wider like children's eyes, and we were able to absorb more information, and we were able to learn as quickly as children.
Yeah. Realize our reality wasn't just one slice of bread. The whole loaf existed, and then the bakery existed. And many bakeries
Yeah.
making different kinds of bread. It's the same kind of thing, only you're talking about realities and
Bread.
what is bread? It's not just the one slice that you think is right now. Bread's just what I have on top of my peanut butter. That's
This
all
piece
it
of pumpernickel is the entire world. Don't
Yeah.
you know that?
is. And it is a half-inch thick and 4 inches square.
And it will only feed you for a certain amount of time, and then you're dead.
Yeah. Nothing else exists.
And I have to have more of it so that I can live longer, and you can't have
Right.
I'm going to get as much as I can so you can't have as much.
And it will only come in those slices.
And if you think otherwise, you're just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And to be dismissed.
And this is like the exercise that's great too, just to realize how crazy the pre-programmed world is.
Oh my goodness. And how much we agreed to be oppressed and to not look past what we were told was real.
Right.
To be so afraid of so many things.
Yeah.
Opinions, finding what was out there, and then what do we do with that? Oh my gosh, responsibility.
Mm. Or do you stop and then you just have to evangelize? Some people just decide, oh, I've had enough and now I can evangelize and I can go back into that old world and share it and profit and use what I've learned to prop myself up in the old programming world.
Yeah. To just add another slice to the loaf.
Right.
It's still pumpernickel.
There's still a big bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm kind of glad we didn't do that. So
Yeah.
better not to do that.
Well, we're too busy
Oh my gosh.
witnessing miracles and learning more. And
why would we want to turn that over to the predatory 3D reality?
There's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, why bring it down into the darkness?
Right. For the darkness to use.
Mm-hmm.
Or to trick us into becoming part of their class. Their everything you ever desire, you'll achieve if you just share this with us. Give us this knowledge, this programming, and we'll make sure that you're totally taken care of. Yeah. Didn't work anymore. That trick didn't work.
No. And it started to feel like we didn't actually even live in the world anymore.
Right.
We lived on the planet, the living, electric, technological Earth.
Right. Yeah, we picked up on like the whole energy matrix of this living being that we develop on.
Mm-hmm. And how it's connected to so many things beyond itself.
Mm-hmm. Even within like the realms of hope and longing and love and spirit. Space and like space. Out there space.
Mm-hmm.
Space is full of, people think it's full of emptiness, but it is full of hope and love and potential.
Isn't that a commentary?
Right. That's just something that you realize once you cross into that technology, that hope and love and potential and longing live in those spaces between what we call stars and planets.
Yeah. Yeah, I started to feel my circuitry interact with even the air that is primarily invisible to most people. But there's so much going on just in this space right here. And to feel how much everything wants to give.
That is, yes. Well, and that's probably the most challenging part that takes your own mental discipline from being born in this 3D realm. It's like when you realize how much there is there, even just in front of you within this small finite space, to allow yourself to pay attention to those things at one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelming.
And to receive.
And to receive.
Yeah.
That takes practice. And faith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which one is better for it, whether it's just practice or whether it's faith, or which one leads to the other or which one feeds back to the other.
Yeah, it's just a natural cycle.
Yeah.
And it sounds as if this would really slow you down because you're noticing everything and that it would be overwhelming. But as everything becomes tangible and real on another level, your psyche and your soul updates automatically. And I started to feel the automaticness of things that could happen, things that could be. It didn't have to be hard work and take time and persevere and persistent, any of that. other than just desiring it and being willing to take the next step.
Right, and then like realizing that that next step could be anything, or something that we just that pops in the moment. That, oh, all of these things, we all of a sudden you find yourself skating on top of a reality rather than having to push through it.
Yes, there it is.
And I learned that I could skate on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
get somewhere else. Or I didn't even realize that that was a possibility until it just sort of unlocked in the moment. And I realized, oh, I can skate on top of this reality like it's a sheet of ice, or I can skydive into the next timeline as if I am descending. I mean, it was something, it's hard to explain just in terms, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
There was a pliability that you had. Um, and that was what taking the next step was like.
Mm-hmm.
And that upgrade felt like, oh my gosh, I've got a new flexible space here that just opened. And then I realized I could do this.
Yeah. And there was no amount of specialness required.
No.
It's just the technology that's available to all of us if we choose to acknowledge it and learn it.
Yeah. I think we could talk about this for hours.
Yes. Yes.
We could talk about this for hours now, and then we didn't even rehearse, didn't even think about this
No.
before we came on and said, "Hi, we're going to talk about opening portals." Oh,
Right. And then we'll look at how much time has elapsed. 5 minutes? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know how long we've been recording, but oh, anything else you want to add right now?
No.
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 Yeah, I feel like we go through a huge rabbit hole and we'd be talking for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime we will, maybe eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, wonderful. Yeah, good.
All
Good
right.
work.
Thank
Again,
you.
we
Yeah,
open portals all the time when we do this.
that's for sure. Oh, and
Yay!
backwards, but there's one more experiment.
Yeah, to me, I see it forward, so perhaps in the recording.
Okay. All right. Good.
The right way. So you see it.
Backwards
Right.
and forwards. It's the same.
It is the same. Good.
Right. Thank you.
Available circularsoul.biz. Hoodies. Have fun with those. Winter's coming.
Yes.
So, all right. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you.
Stop the recording. Here we go.